I'm Ron. How are you?
Good. And you are still sitting here with Shirley, and we are doing an interview for Lives and Legends for Ladysmith Historical Society. So do you want to go ahead and start telling us a little bit about all these wonderful pictures you brought here?
That's a logging picture. See, that's up
I'll
Mount
put
Breton.
the logging pictures in one.
Yeah, that's on Mount Breton. Check this out. Look at this baby. You know what that is?
No, what is that?
That's the Kew Gardens tree. That's the one bringing it down the Copper Canyon that went to. This is the one that went to England. Now, this is a very famous photo taken in 1958, and this is the 12 mile on the Copper Canyon logging road. This is the big tree that went to Kew Gardens in London, England, and it was cut up in Copper Canyon, and it was fell by guys, and I'll give you the name in a few minutes here. I just got to get the names. John Mulder was a bullbucker man. He's from Ladysmith, very famous bullbucker that started working there in 1942, and he was a hand faller before that. But his history we'll talk about another day. He's got quite a history, John Mulder. But this is very famous, like George Cross was one of the guys that was following it. But anyway, George Cross was there.
180 feet?
Yeah.
And now, what is it? Is it a fir, a cedar?
Douglas fir, yeah. It was fell in what they call the Kew Gardens area of Copper Canyon, because it was named Kew Gardens because it went to Kew Gardens in London.
What were they going to do with it?
They put it up for a flagpole. It was a big-time flagpole.
So what year is this?
1958.
1958. Do you think it's still around?
The pole's still there. Oh yeah, it's still there in Kew Gardens in England. Oh, I'm sure it is. Rose, she's married to Glenn Wheeler. And Rose, it was her dad that was the one that was following it. All the Wheelers and Shemanis. And I can't get... I have a problem with that guy's name. I don't know why it doesn't come out. He was a great guy that was following, and then he got on the yarders and loaders working yarding logs in and that later on, but he was a faller. But he'd be in the crummy there when we're sitting there, he'd always talk about falling, and he's, and you're bucking, you got to buck on it, yes, nip it off like that. He was talking about that. I thought, where the hell did you know that from? But I didn't realize he was the guy that fell the Kew Gardens tree, so he knew a lot about it. So it's foggy up in the lakes.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Now, this is something that you won't see too often because you don't get these. There's that famous picture there in the Second Lake Flats, right? That's all Douglas fir. This is up behind Fourth Lake. That's Fourth Lake, you see. Now these are yellow cedar. Look at those beautiful trees. They grow up higher. You won't get them down below, say, 1,500 feet on the mountains or something like that. These are two majestic ones. Up in behind this lake, way up in there, we flew in with the helicopters and we were logging an area near Shaw Lake, which is in behind Fourth Lake, and we climb up in behind it. That's where the people used to hunt the elk a lot. That Sadie Creek runs out of it. This is the kind of big yellow cedars that grow in that area. Aren't they something? Mm-hmm. Like this is Shaw Lake. This is up in behind Fourth Lake. This is up further up in behind. You have to climb up.
So these are all these wonderful areas where the logging was happening.
That's right, hon. Max Proto, who was born and raised in Chemanis, and this is what they call the Denman. You see, they're or penmans, I should say, not Stanfields. They're light penmans for the good weather. These hard hats here are tin. There's no muffs on them, no ear muffs, no face shield. And this is Nima River, 1966. Now this is Sam Ripka. All the Ripkas were following, 4 of them. And Bill Ripka had the oyster bar by the Diamond, up there. Remember the oyster bar?
Yes.
His brother owned it. Now Bill lived to do way up to 66, but they were the greatest guys because this was on contract. When you were falling then, you didn't get paid by the day. You only got paid by what you did. And they had to work hard. You're falling, and I was a scaler with a scale stick. I go along and do their work, check it out with a scale stick and measure, and then write it on there for cedar, hemlock,
So what company are you working for here?
This was McMillan Bedell.
That's McMillan Bedell.
That's the big guns.
Okay.
This is Nima River Camp.
Okay.
And at this camp, these guys were falling for the machines And they brought in,
another guy.
they had the steam train at Lima River then, the big steam locomotive. Not this one that's here, but the M&B one. And I used to be around it a lot. And then they had a reload come from the bush like this with the trucks, reload onto the train cars, and then they were brought down to Chemainus, right down to the dump in Chemainus. I mean, these guys in this picture were following this right here. This is Lima River, 1965. That's the Reinhardt. You see the Reinhardt Mountains in the back?
Yeah.
This is R11. You can see the idea of the beautiful timber that used to be there. R11, that's Reinhardt. R11, there was R8, R9, R10. That's the different roads.
Oh, the name of the road?
That's the road, Reinhardt, R11. And in the back up in there on the top where the snow is, you see, Shirley? That's where Mount Whimper is, up in the back in there. You go over the other side of that and you get into Copper Canyon. There.
Okay, so now tell us about these ones.
The guy that fell this is from Saltaire, Ron Johnson. And he lived right near the store in Saltaire. And this is a long ways away, but that's a 17-foot cedar. This is South Bending Arm up at the near Bella Coola. And there's North Bending Arm, South Bending Arm. And I went with him as a 20-year-old. I was bucking these big trees. So that was the land, or the, what would I say, the country of the grizzly bears and wolves. Lots of grizzlies there.
Did you ever have one come into camp?
Oh, they were about a quarter mile out from camp because it was all run by generators and no electricity in there. So you had to have a big Caterpillar motor. You hear them all day and night running that. So we'd go about a quarter of a mile out to near this estuary where the river came out, and you could see 5 or 6 grizzlies there in the grass. They were in the tall grass. And some of them were the silver tip, the big gray on the hump, you know. Yeah. Oh, this is the regular type stand of timber in Copper Canyon, 1965. This is what you call Meat Creek Road. And that's the timber stands that were there. And this timber was all like this sort of uniform because there was a huge fire on the east coast of Vancouver Island in the early 1600. So it burnt everything up. So it all started out when I went to work as a 17-year-old in 1964. This stuff was gauged to be around 340 years old. But there was some little patches where there was 500, 600, 700-year-old trees because it didn't burn everything. There'd be a little patch, a little hole, you know, the fire would go by it, but it didn't burn it right out. Okay? So they'd be left. But this is like the main crop of trees, eh?
So they'll all be uniform and
yeah, they're sort of,
easy
you know,
to...
but they were bigger where there was a little lower. As you get up on the hills, you get out of the fir, you get into more cedar, balsam, and hemlock. The fir was down a little lower, but then you get up into yellow cedar way up, eh? But mostly balsam and hemlock up higher. There was one there, you give an example, this is one that was down on the power lines toward Chemainus. This is probably a 700 or 800-year-old tree to the side. Yeah, well this one here, sure, you can hold that up, huh? See, that's an example of an old timer. That one's, we counted that, it was over 600 years old. And this is up in past Fourth Lake and the Nanaimo Lakes, yeah. You can see the size of that. That's a big tree. It's probably 6 feet on the stump. Much bigger than these. You buck that, you gotta watch you don't slab it. You gotta buck underneath, really good buck under like that, buck. And then you come over the top and get the far side, then you come around and poop, and it pops off just like you're breaking a carrot off. When you go poop like that with a carrot, that's how that's supposed to pop off and not slab a big hunk out of the log. If you want to get, here's one of my heroes here. This is Johnny Phillips, and there's going back, he's maybe 30 years old. Now he's getting close to 90, but you notice the size of the big saw and the big bar. He's a real stud there, this guy. Yeah, you get a hold of him, he grab you, you thought you were in a vice. He's logging there, staying in that little cabin and falling timber.
Do you have any other stories about him? Do you can think of?
John Phillips, oh gosh, he was logging with his dad when he was like 14 years old. He was climbing trees, he was high rigging as a 14, 15-year-old. Like the stories are sort of unbelievable until you start to realize who you're talking to. It sounds like a bit of exaggeration, but it's not, because he was rigging and climbing, and he was our kind of boss of the side of the Denman River. We loved him because he'd be out there setting up the big 90-foot Medill towers. They got to come up like this, and then they got to be guide to all the stumps. And he was what you call the boss of the site, like the the hooker, I guess, yeah. The funniest part about John, there was a place out there by where you go to Cedar. There was Johnny Services there, and there'd be about 20 of us on the big bus going to work, and we'd have to stop at Johnny's service so John could get his snooze in the morning. He couldn't go to work unless he got his can of snooze. Everybody knew that John wasn't going to do anything without a snooze, so we had to stop for him. But I don't think they stopped for anybody else, but they stopped for John. Yeah.
And he's related to the lady that used to be...
Joan Phillips?
Yeah, well, he's only related in the way that Harry Phillips married Joan Phillips.
I see.
Harry Phillips is a nephew. Harry Phillips is son of Les Phillips, his brother. Both these guys were working at Lama River Camp. Now, Les was loading logs, and tragically, John Phillips used to fish at the Gap with a little putter boat. This guy had a brother who was drowned there in 1965. He was going on the inside of the Gap, mucking around with the little outboard engine, and he was mucking around with the carburetor on it, and it speeded up on him, and it flipped him out of the little aluminum boat. And he was swimming really well. He was swimming in the current like this. And the stupid boat came around. Of all the chances and odds of that, it was still running, went around, spun around when he's swimming, and hit him on the side of the head, hit him on the temple, and knocked him out. So I guess he was laying there and probably got water into him. So Buster led our famous other half of the Gold Dust twin. His brother was the other half of the Gold Dust twin. Remember we talked about that? And Buster pulled his lines and quickly went over this little 17-foot putter and grabbed him by the hair and pulled him in. But he was already drowned. These pictures are kind of fun because this was taken up on Mount Breton. And this is Esco Pelto, one of the contract trucks that used to take the timber off there. Now I just want to see, this is the loader that was up there. That's loading the logs up on Mount Breton there. Now Ron Delcourt ran this machine. He's still around, he's about 86. Cart motor. Did you ever do a cart motor, Bobby?
Yeah, we used to do a bunch of those.
See? And noisy. Jeez.
He's got a spare 3.8 liter Buick engine.
Yeah, you farm one of them.
Trouble is, he only go about 6,000 RPM. You'd have to gear it up.
There's the guy that invented pumping up power saw motors.
Wow. Well, we have to talk to you another time then.